So first of all, everybody, welcome to the webinar tonight. This is part of the Active SG Voyager Tennis Academy online program, which we've started this week. I guess one of the main purposes is to inform, educate, and motivate players and parents on a variety of tennis topics each week. So I'm going to be the host of the session. And with a special guest each week. And this week we've got, really fortunate enough to have Micheal Zhang, who is a Harvard-bound student or Voyager program graduate. So we're really pleased to have Micheal on board with us tonight. But I guess this example of Micheal is really a big reason why Voyager Tennis Academy exists. And that is to provide life-enhancing opportunities to people through tennis. So we're really thrilled that someone like Micheal has been able to achieve such a huge lifelong goal, or it's such a massive achievement. And massive credit to Micheal as well for all the hard work that he puts in every day academically and on the court with his tennis as well. So just moving on, I guess just a little bit about my own background. So I'm a former professional tennis player. I was also ranked on the world junior circuit, so #1 in the world in junior doubles and 16 in the world in junior singles. I've been a coach of around 15 years, particularly in the high performance space and working with elite junior and senior players. I'm a Tennis Australia coach educator, managing director of Voyager Tennis Academy, and also an author of Winning on and off the court, a book that we released last year. So just going into Micheal. So Micheal was a Voyager student in the McDonald College program. He's now a graduate. He's had a career high ranking of a national ranking in Australia of 22 for his age group, a UTR high of 11.6. He was the school captain of the McDonald College. Represented the school in the World School Championships. Australia, the McDonald College actually won the Australian Schools Championships, and Micheal was part of that team that went on to the world champs there. They came 5th. Perfect SAT score, which is of 1600, which is actually something that I think 1 in around every 7,000 students that participate in that test achieve a perfect score. So well done there, Micheal. Once again, he actually did that twice. And he's now been offered a place at Harvard University, which is super exciting. I guess Harvard is kind of known as one of those universities as probably the hardest to get into in the world, and maybe perhaps the most prestigious as well. So a really fantastic achievement for Micheal, and look forward to the audience getting to know him tonight. So I'll kick off into a couple of questions. First of all, tonight, welcome, mate. So you there? Yep. All right, cool. Yeah. So, Micheal, what age did you start playing tennis, and what got you involved in the game?
Yeah, sure. So I started playing tennis actually quite late. So I started, maybe I was around 11, 12. And, I've been playing a lot of other sports before then, playing cricket, soccer a lot. But then I guess for me, tennis, as soon as I started playing tennis, I guess I fell in love with it. And there were a lot of reasons for that, I guess. I mean, traveling to tournaments and playing tennis with my mates, going to different cities, and it's just deeper than that. Though, what particularly set tennis apart from other sports was that I really enjoyed how competition, where you were kind of training with your squads and doing all those things, where you had that camaraderie and you had that team. And I think in particular tennis is come out at tournaments and stuff like that. And I guess that's what really made me fall in love with tennis.
Yeah, cool. That's cool, mate. Hey, just checking in. Vera, who's on some of that technical support. It could just be my line, but is Michael's line sort of going in and out?
Yeah, Micheal, you're going in and out with your audio. I'm not sure if it's your headphones or
Okay.
could you do a direct connect to your laptop? Would that be better? You were
Yeah,
cutting
yeah.
in and
Let
out.
me just disconnect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, let's try that. Sorry.
Yeah. Did you
Yeah, that's fine. That's good.
Yeah. Okay. Is everything? That could be better there, mate. I was hoping it wasn't my connection there, but and I guess yeah, I guess when you first you started excelling academically at some point, when was that, and what do you put down your to your academic success?
Yeah. Well, I guess I always was, a pretty good student. I mean, I was always, doing well in school. I mean, school for me was always something that was, super important, ingrained in me since I was young, by my immigrant parents. So I guess I always had the idea that I should work hard in school. And I was always doing pretty well, through primary school and into the early years of high school. But I was never a standout student, I guess. But I think, I've been getting better and better every year from year 7 to year 12. So I think part of the reason for that is because I kind of had a mentality where I wasn't just focusing on school, and I had kind of a more holistic approach to my education. I think that although my parents really cared about education, they also kind of taught me that other things in life mattered as well. So I guess, I was also, in addition to, studying and stuff, I was also involved in a lot of tennis, obviously, and I did a lot of music and leadership stuff. And I think even though, that took time away from my studies, it actually kind of simultaneously enhanced that. And, I was doing better in school than, some of my friends who were, studying 24/7. And I think, that was a big part of the reason for why I was able to achieve some of the academic results that I did.
Yeah, it's interesting, mate. So you found that balance was really important in actually achieving more academically. I guess in terms of the colleges that you got offered scholarships into, do you want to maybe talk a little bit about the colleges that were really interested in you as a student athlete? And yeah, I guess what were they looking for in a student from your perspective?
Yeah, sure. So for me, going to college in America was always, I was always looking for a super strong academic college. Because for me, I always thought that, academics came first. And so I was looking at schools like, obviously like Harvard. So I was also accepted into the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania, which is another Ivy League school. I got accepted into New York University. I had athletic offers from University of Chicago, stuff like that. And ultimately, I was able to get also got a full scholarship at Emory University, which is another top 30 academic school, they were ranked 1 in the Division 3 rankings, which was worth around $500,000. And in total, I think my scholarships totaled up to around $1 million Australian dollars. And I think the reason why I got so many good offers like that was because I had kind of some of the traits that I guess they were looking for. So I guess prestigious academic schools in America are really looking for, not just people who are, good in school or good on the court or good, somewhere else. They're looking for someone that, has something really, I guess, special about them. And I guess, part of that is, having a really good personal characteristics. The American process really values things like, letters of recommendation and personal essays. And I think, I guess because of my, tennis background, I had a lot of stuff to talk about. I had a lot of lessons that tennis had taught me, things like resilience, things like, the value of hard work. And I think that those, traits really shone through in my, personal evaluations. And also, I guess, they thought that, that my ability to balance, I guess, academics and tennis at a high level was something that, not many people could do. And I think that's something that really stood out to them. Yeah.
Absolutely, mate. No, it's some really interesting insights. And I guess in some of the conversations that we had the other day, you were saying that there's a lot of perfect SAT score students, often don't, they get rejected at Harvard. So you were sort of saying at a school like Harvard, I guess being a good student is just the baseline, but you need to have something, else that's kind of special. to be able to get into a school like that. Do you want to talk through? I mean, Harvard's sort of known to be, you know, the hardest university in the world to get into. Do you want to talk through what the application process sort of looks like?
Yeah, sure. So I guess this is kind of relevant because I'm assuming that most of the listeners are all Singapore students. So I guess this is something that's relevant. I guess Harvard is one of the only 5 need blind schools in America. So I guess when you're looking, what that means is that in America, most of the schools are need aware, which means that if you need like financial aid or scholarship support, they're really going to take that into account. Whereas there's 5 schools: Harvard, Yale, Princeton, MIT, and Amherst. They're need blind. So that means no matter if you need, no matter if your income's $0 or if your income's $1 million, they treat you all the same, which is part of the reason why Harvard is so hard to get into, especially as an international student. And I guess the application process is quite, detailed. So I'd say there's 3 main parts. So firstly, you have the academic part. So that's, your school transcript, your GPA from years 9 to 12. Also your SAT scores, SAT subject test scores, things like that. And also, I guess, your academic passion and, your intellectual curiosity. So that's, I guess, the main part, number 1 part, sorry. Number 2 part, I'd say, is your extracurriculars. So for me, that would be my tennis, that would be my leadership stuff like school captaincy. And also I did some like music, I played trumpet, I did some community service, stuff like that. That's a huge part. I'd say that's probably after your academics reach that certain baseline, the extracurriculars are what gets you to getting in. So that's huge, And then thirdly, you have your, like I was saying before, your personal evaluation. So you have your letters of recommendation from your teachers, your personal essays, and those all sort of bring insight into, who you are as a person. And I guess that's very important as well. They really look at that. And I think those 3 components, although they're very distinct, they also kind of, combine together, because if you're doing well in one area, you're probably going to be doing well in the others. So I guess, when you're looking at a school like Harvard, you're going to have, top scores in all 3 of those categories.
Nice, mate. Yeah, it's some really good insights. And from a lot of the students, I guess, that we've had that have gone to college in the last couple of years, is that we hear the same message, I guess, across almost every university. You've got to be decent academically. You've got to be a good tennis player, but you've also got to have, good personal qualities and be able to, I guess coaches, particularly coaches who are recruiting players into the team, they want to work with good individuals for, 3, 4 years in a row. So it's really important that they're looking for the characteristics, I guess, which is what we've found across, a lot of those universities. So really interesting insights, but I found that quite fascinating talking to you the other day. But baseline, the education was just the baseline. You had to do a lot more on top of that in order to get into it. So it's a fantastic achievement there, mate. And I guess one of the big challenges that a lot of parents have in Singapore, they have it in Australia as well, is getting that balance of tennis and education. So you've got to, and obviously the other balance, which is character development, which can all be blended in, I guess, into a tennis program, an academic program. But how did you go about doing that? Because there aren't too many people that end up with there's very few people that end up with the outcome that you've got. But how did you get the balance of tennis and education right over the last, say, let's call it 6 years of high school?
Sure. Yeah, sure. So, for those of you guys that don't know, so basically from my high school, I went from year 7 to 12, and from year 7 to 10, for me, I was at North Sydney Boys High School, which was, a super, probably, they're ranked like 2nd academically in Australia. So they're a super academic school. And whilst I was playing tennis there, maybe 10 hours a week, it was super hard for me to, pursue tennis because it's a very academic environment. So, I was lucky enough to meet Luke. So Luke's one of the coaches at Voyager when I was in year 10, and he actually got me to move schools to the McDonald College, which is basically partnered with Voyager Tennis, where basically we're doing an integrated, 20-hour week training schedule along with my academics. So that made it super easy from years 10, 11, 12 to balance tennis and academics because, that's what was really important to me, to get really good at both, because ultimately, even if I stayed at North Sydney Boys, my academic results wouldn't have been they might have been maybe like 1% better, but in the long run, that's not going to make a difference in the college admissions results. And, you know, moving schools really allowed me to kind of broaden my perspectives, both, you know, extracurricularly, but also, you know, personally and leadership wise. So in terms of, you know, actually balancing academics and athletics, I guess, I have three main, you know, tips I'd like to share with you guys and talk about. So firstly, this thing called the 80-20 rule. So I don't know if you guys might have heard about it, but basically how I applied, you know, the 80-20 rule was kind of using 20% of my time to achieve 80% of the results. So, you know, I realized that I wasn't going to be able to do everything perfectly. I wasn't going to be able to, you know, get to a 15 UTR and also, you know, win a national maths Olympiad and stuff like that, because, you know, that's pretty much impossible unless, you know, you're a superhuman. But so basically what I tried to do throughout, you know, my years of high school was try to, you know, do as good as I could academically, you know, try to use 20% of my time to get like, you know, pretty good marks. And then I'd focus the rest of that time on, you know, something that really mattered to me. So for me, that was tennis for a lot of the part. Sometimes it would be leadership. And, you know, what that allowed me to do was kind of develop a kind of spike, they call it, in college admissions, where basically you need a spike to get into these schools where basically you're super good at something. So basically by using the 80-20 rule, you're allowed to use that time to develop something you're really passionate about and you're really good at. And for me, you know, that was tennis and leadership, I guess. So, you know, that was something that was, I guess, really good for me. I guess secondly, a tip that I used was like using lists. It seems a bit trivial, but I guess, you know, the student athlete experience is a super tough one. You know, a lot of people underestimate how difficult it can be. And I guess you get overwhelmed a lot. And for me, whenever I found that I was being, you know, I was struggling, I guess I would just list out everything I needed to achieve. So it would be a long-term list, you know, so maybe a big exam, a big tournament, stuff like that. But also every week I would have short-term lists where I'd have like just like homework, everything I needed to do. And every time I completed that, I guess I'd tick one off. So that was super helpful for me, both in terms of like efficiency, but also making me just like giving me peace of mind and making life easier, I guess. And thirdly, making use of small time. So, you know, time is of the essence, I guess, when you're a student athlete, even, you know, when you're not a student athlete. And for me, I would do things like using breaks at recess and lunch to study, using my train commutes, getting all my homework done then, going to tournaments and studying at tournaments. Just those sorts of being disciplined with stuff like that really allowed me to, I guess, achieve both. So
yeah, nice, mate. I mean, that's quite fascinating. That you know, as I said, we see that all the time. That a lot of students say, "I don't have enough time to balance tennis and education together." And you're literally, you know, on trains doing homework and recess doing work and that. I guess something that I haven't actually haven't asked you as yet. Just be interested to hear your response on this. How early on did you set your goals around going to a big college in the US? Was that something that you decided when you were in your previous high school, when you're in that sort of academic mode, or did that sort of come about over time? Because to do the work that you've done over the last couple of years to get that balance of being, I mean, a 22 national ranking for your age group in Australia is a very, very high level. And to do that at the same time academically is a phenomenal effort. So yeah, how early on did you know what you wanted, I guess, or the end goal for you?
Yeah, sure. Is my audio okay, by the way? Is it?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. Well, you're right. Yeah, it's good. It sounds good from my end.
Yep, all good.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess at my old school, North Sydney, so I didn't really have the idea to pursue you know, overseas education, because I wouldn't say it's a big thing in Australia. Most people just go to study in Australia. I was probably going to study, you know, maybe commerce and law at Sydney Uni. But I guess after speaking to Luke, when I really like decided I wanted to go to America was when I moved schools. So, you know, I thought, I realized, you know, how cool the pathway was. And I was like, you know, that's what I want to do. And I guess the way I thought about it was by moving to somewhere like McDonald College and Voyager, that was going to give me the best outcome to do that. So, you know, it was pretty much maybe halfway through year 10 where I really like decided I'm going to go to America for college.
Nice. Yeah, no, I mean, it requires usually serious goals to be able to commit that hard to what you're doing. So no, really, really impressive to hear those things about list prioritization. I mean, they're the types of things that people do once they're in the workforce, in the business world, handling the stress of balancing, work and family or whatever it is. You've basically done that with, education and tennis. They're all the same, but you're certainly preparing yourself incredibly well for college, but also life after, college and wherever you want to pursue after that. Do you want to really quickly go through what your weekly tennis program would look like? So you're going to a school full time, and what did you fit around that education?
Yeah, sure. So my weekly tennis program will probably involve, around maybe 20 hours or so on court each week. Maybe 3 or 4 hours in the gym. So that would be, we'd have twice a week, we'd have morning sessions. So 6:30 to 8 a.m. We'd have that. And then most afternoons, pretty much all afternoons, would be on court from around maybe 2 to 1:30 to 4. And then we'd be in the gym, 4 to 5, 4 to 6, stuff like that. So it was definitely pretty hectic. And so we'd have school from maybe like 8 to 1:30. So our school day was cut a bit short, but, that's just about, balancing, finding time to do school in your own time and doing that. And as part of that also, a big part of the time commitment for tennis was also tournaments. So I guess I was playing around maybe 20, 25 tournaments per year. And those are like 3-4 day tournaments. And that would often mean I'd miss a lot of school. So I'd probably miss, maybe in my final year, I'd miss maybe 20, 30% of my school year, which is quite a lot. And I was lucky because my teachers were quite supportive of that. But it also meant a lot of, catching up in my own time, stuff like that. But I definitely think, that was a big part of my college application. Actually, I wrote an essay about how, I have to miss a lot of school for tennis. And I think that, that made it all the more impressive that I was able to keep up with my academic studies. And I think that colleges really, recognize that, and, set me apart from, other students. So, yeah.
Yeah, nice, mate. Yeah, it's really, really interesting story there. And just shifting topics a little bit, we know that parents, I guess, have probably the biggest influence on how far their child gets in the game, how far they go as a tennis player, the character development, academics. I mean, parents are a huge influence on that. What sort of influence were your parents on you in relation to the journey you've chosen and how they helped you develop into the person that you are today?
Yeah, definitely huge. Yeah, I can't thank my parents enough for everything they've done for me. I mean, I think I was lucky that my parents, I think they're really open-minded and they actually gave me a lot of like good advice. So I guess the main thing for me was, in the decision to move schools in the first place. So, North Sydney Boys is a very, prestigious academic school. And I guess basically when I was thinking about moving, everyone around me told me not to move because they thought I was, sacrificing, I guess, a certainty of future academic success almost. And, they were pretty adamant about that. And they basically told me, what are you doing with your life? But I was lucky where my parents, they were super supportive of me. And they talked about, how the benefits I'm going to get out of tennis in the long run, because, as much as, school can teach you about stuff, I mean, the lessons that I've learned from tennis are there's nothing like it. So, they actually supported me. They told me that I should move schools, and it actually, worked out. So firstly, I can't thank them enough for that, but also just in general, they've been super supportive throughout the whole, student athlete experience. And they've really taught me, I guess the main thing they've really taught me is to focus on kind of the journey and not the result. Because I mean, tennis is a super result driven sport. I mean, at the end of every tournament, there's only one winner, right? So everyone else is a loser. And I guess I'm super competitive. So when you're like that, it can be tough. And I guess they kind of taught me that, it doesn't matter, what the end result is. You just got to put in the work and, trust the process. So, that's probably the main thing I've learned from my parents and from tennis in general. And, I think I'm a more mature person, I guess, because of that.
Yeah, nice. And that's often a really good approach we find from parents that rather than getting caught up in the highs and lows of winning matches, it sounds like your parents had a very balanced approach. Whether you lost and played poorly or won and played fantastic, it sounds like they had a quite a balanced approach to that. In what you're saying there, and I guess the other thing, listening to that, when you said a lot of people said that you made a mistake for leaving North Sydney Boys High, which is an academic school, and now you're going to Harvard. Have you ever thought about reaching out to those people and saying, "Oh, by the way, just letting you know the advice you gave me was maybe I've ended up in quite a good place academically now."
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the people that told me were actually like some of my friends, so I'm still in contact with them. So I guess they were kind of surprised almost that they were like, "Oh wow, you proved us all wrong." So it was kind of a triumphant moment, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just it's a great story, I guess, to go against the grain and what a lot of people are saying, and you just went with what your heart told you and what your ambitions told you, and no, it's really really inspirational there.
I mean,
yeah, sorry.
So I mean, part of that is like also the college admissions are looking for people who do go against the grain, and they're looking for people who chase their passions and chase their dreams. And I think that story also probably resonated with them in terms of how it resembled someone who wasn't afraid of going against the norm and kind of pursuing what they believed in, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And just I guess an off the cuff question there is just around what are you most looking forward to going to experiencing when you go to Harvard? What's sort of in your mind around what are your expectations? What's exciting about it for you?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a lot of things. I mean, college in America is part of the reason why I wanted to go is college in America is so different from college in Australia. I mean, here we just pretty much, it's like another 4 years of high school, university years, where pretty much we just, live at home and we go to university for our classes, stuff like that. And I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to, experiencing, college life where, you're living amongst, your peers, studying together, doing extracurriculars and sports together. And I mean, I think that just sort of community is just like so special, I guess, in the sense that, your friends and your peers are pushing you to be, the best you can be, not just in the classroom, not just like on the court, but also, as a person. And I think that I've sort of got a taste for that already, where, I've been able to meet some of my future classmates through like Facebook and stuff like that. And just from what I get, there's like everyone's so like incredible. Everyone has something that's special about them, and they're all just super nice, personable people as well. And I just, I'm super, super excited to be able to spend another 4 years, getting to know them and learning from those sorts of people.
Staying away from those Harvard parties, mate. We've heard about those in some movies. So
yeah,
it sounds like you'll have an amazing mate, lots of meeting lots of people. I mean, yeah, it would be it's obviously a place where some of the world's most famous people are coming from, like Barack Obama, or you've got Zuckerberg and Gates and guys like that have gone there. So it's a pretty spectacular place. And I guess maybe the last question before we'll give a chance to parents to ask you some questions is what are your plans after college at this stage? I mean, it's still 4 and a bit years away before you've got to think about it. But what are your hopes and goals after you finish going to Harvard?
Yeah, sure. So at Harvard, I'm probably thinking right now about studying applied mathematics with maybe a specialization in economics and computer science, something like that. So in terms of like future career goals, I really want to stay in New York maybe for a few years and work maybe like in private sector finance, stuff like that there. And then I want to like work in a lot of different countries. I mean, I really want to work in Singapore actually for maybe for a bit, maybe go to Hong Kong, stuff like that. But then my like long-term goal is to work in public policy, in the public sector, and work either, in industries like the treasury or maybe like the Reserve Bank. And you really use like economics as kind of a tool to, like make change in the world. So I know it sounds cliche, but that's the end goal. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, certainly a Harvard education, it stands out massively on a resume. It gives you such a breadth of opportunities. The world's going to be your oyster coming off the back of that. And no, it's a really exciting time. So I guess from Voyager's point of view, like I think you've done, you've been an incredible student. We really appreciate everything that you've done for the environment. You've been such a positive influence on all the students and the coaches and everybody around you. And we're really excited to see how the next couple of years pans out for you. So no, well done and congratulations. And so what we want to do now is open up to some questions. Vera, do you want to open up the chat group now to
yeah.
parents? Yep.
Yeah, so the question box is open. So if anyone has any questions, just send it through the text box on the Q&A that you'll see at the bottom of your screen. Any questions for Michael or Ryan, you can send them through. Okay, we have one. I'm just gonna deal with this one first. How many, Michael, I think this is for you. How many hours a week were you playing in your last year in North Sydney High before you moved to McDonald? Would you have been able to put in the same playing hours if you didn't move to McDonald?
Yeah, sure. So I was actually playing maybe around 10, 15 hours a week when I was at North Sydney Boys. And, that was okay at that point, because the way it works in Australia is, I guess, you're building up to the final year, so year 12. So everything up until then is kind of, chill. But once it gets to those last 2 years, especially the last year of high school, it gets very, very intense. So in terms of answering your question, I think definitely I wouldn't have been able to play, more than maybe 5-10 hours a week if I had stayed in North Sydney, which, ultimately I probably would have ended up quitting in my last year, because I guess in that sort of environment as well, everyone's just studying. So it would have been hard for me to, find motivation to keep pursuing something like tennis, where I was investing so many hours into it, which is why I wanted to move when I realized that I wanted to be in an environment where, people were pursuing both. So, yeah.
Definitely. And just to probably jump in there, I think just what you're talking about there in terms of focusing your efforts in a younger age group, like that is a really smart way, I guess, because what we do find as far as from a player development perspective is the more hours that a player can clock on the court and the more matches they can play, it does have a direct correlation to the level that you get to. So what you were talking about there, Michael, I guess is how you focused a lot of building a lot of your on-court hours at a younger age group. And I think, in the conversation we had before this call, is by the time you got to year 12, which is the big year where you've got exams and studying, you actually back off slightly in that year. You don't play quite as many matches, but you basically, the first 5 years of high school is where you've built all your great foundations as a player. And that's certainly what we find as well. There's a big opportunity for players in primary school, and then in the first few years of high school, and probably not to underplay, I guess, the school that Michael's been to. He was at North Sydney Boys High, is the second best academic school in Australia. He's probably downplaying it a little bit when he says he can relax in the first couple of years, because I would gather there'd be a lot of students studying very hard in those first few years. But you just took the approach of, hey, I'm going to build my tennis hours there, try and get my level up as high as I can, and when I get to the last year of school, I'll back off, and you're already at a good level by then, and you'll get some good opportunities. So yeah, and I just wanted to reiterate that as a question. I know I've got a couple more coming in.
Yep. Okay, this question got upvoted twice, so I'm gonna deal with this one first. Michael, how do you handle pressure during matches?
Yeah, sure. Tough one. Obviously, I still feel pressure. Everyone feels pressure, and I feel very stressed at times, but I guess what I think I've learned, I've got a lot better at this over the years playing tennis. I guess it comes back down to what I was saying before about, just realizing that, the results aren't everything. And I mean, I think, although it's sounds easy to just say that, I think ultimately, when it comes down to it right now, I think back to the matches I've played where I've thought they were the life or death, like end of the world. And, I can barely remember them. And I'm someone that, values those matches a lot. And, in the grand scheme of things, each match isn't going to really do, it's not going to make or break you. And it's just about, I think the sooner you kind of realize that the results aren't everything, you actually improve more and more, because I think a lot of people play their best when they realize that, you know, there's not that much on the line, and they play their best when they're relaxed. And I think that it's just kind of a mentality that you have to, you know, slowly ingrain in you. And it took me, you know, years. I'm still trying to, you know, find that mentality, but it's just like a gradual kind of mentality, I guess. I don't think there's really any secrets to it.
Yeah.
I don't think I saw Michael misbehave on the tennis court, so I think he did it pretty well.
Yeah, he's got a pretty cool head. And I think what
Okay.
you're talking about too, Michael, is it takes a long time to develop that mindset. You know, you look at players on the ATP tour, WTA tour, they often don't get themselves mentally together until their mid-20s. So what you're talking about there is getting nervous and all the things that you experience during matches, very common and that. But I would say absolutely you do a fantastic job in that space, at least from the outside looking in.
So there are a few people who want to know, Michael, what are your further plans for tennis at this stage?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was never someone that wanted to go professional. I mean, that was never really, you know, a dream of mine. So I guess I just like to keep playing in college, you know, as much as I can. And from there, you know, I'd like to stay in the game, of course, you know, keep playing with my friends and stuff like that. But I don't have anything too serious planned for the future in terms of that.
Okay, Ryan, maybe you'll take this one. Does a junior player need to get a UTR rating before he qualifies for college in the US?
Yeah, I had this question throughout the week actually via email, and the UTR rating is an important tool for coaches to use, but it's definitely not the be all and end all. So coaches, as Michael was saying, they do look at things like national rankings. They do look at your character development, your academics. They look a lot at head-to-head results as well. So if you've played against players that have a UTR, then you can colleges will be able to assess the level that you're at. So yeah, to answer that, there's a range of factors. I mean, the UTR isn't heavily integrated into Singapore as yet. But I think over the coming years, it certainly may, or another rating system will. So yeah, hopefully that gives a little bit of an insight into you know, it's just a combination of tennis results. And probably the last thing around the UTR is, as far as when it's really important to have your UTR peaking, if it is a priority, is really after you graduate from high school. There's like a 6-month window where colleges recruit athletes. So it's usually if you in Australia, in the Australian system, you finish your high school in around October, and you've got until around March of the next year, that sort of 6-month window, to get your UTR as high as possible. So I understand a lot of the parents on the call probably have younger players that are sort of, you know, could have 12, 13, 14-year-olds. UTR is not important yet then anyway. It sort of gets important in those later years, if that makes sense. Hopefully that answers that question.
Good. Okay, back to you, Michael. You mentioned that you started late at the age of maybe 11 or 12. Do you think that your love of the sport or hard work and talent, hard work contributed more to the achievements for you as an athlete?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't think I'm a very talented player per se. I mean, I don't think that's what a lot of coaches told me as well. I mean, I was kind of known as, you know, the guy, like the workhorse that, you know, might not have as much talent as the next guy. So I think it was definitely my love for the sport and hard work. Probably 95%. I mean, I'm an all right athlete, I guess, but, you know, definitely wasn't what allowed me to kind of make big improvements in short times.
And so maybe related to that, they want to know how much you love tennis on a scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah, sure. Tough question. I mean, I think tennis is one of those sports where when you're playing it a lot, you think you love it less and less, but like when you don't play it, you love it a lot. So I think that, you know, when there were times, of course, when I was playing, you know, heaps and heaps, and I might have been losing more than I was winning, where I might have thought that I didn't really love tennis that much. But, you know, in retrospect, and especially now where I'm not playing as much due to Corona and stuff like that, I'd say maybe an 8 or a 9, you know. So I love it quite a lot.
Right. When you don't have it, you love it more, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, just to close out, there's just one more sort of maybe Michael, just a motivational message for Singaporean kids. What message would you give to these kids who are training really hard, just to give them a little something to find motivation to give their 100% to tennis?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess all I can say for that is, one of my biggest regrets is that I didn't start, training hard earlier. So, I guess I wish that I really started only training seriously maybe once when I was like 14, 15. And I think that, although I'm super happy with what I've been able to achieve, I think that, I would have been able to achieve, even more if I had been playing tennis, at a very elite level from when I was maybe like 9 or 10. And I think that for, young Singaporean players out there who have that opportunity to, start training, at an elite level earlier, I think just like really be, appreciative that you have that opportunity and, take that opportunity and do as much as you can with it. Because I mean, the opportunities that you have, once you're like good at a sport and once you've, invested a lot of time into it are, endless, not just, college wise, but I think the things that teach you are like endless. So, just have faith and, keep in mind what you can achieve if you just keep working hard, I guess. Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks, Michael. Ryan, there, are we okay to call it? Or
Yeah,
time?
yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that's around that time that we sort of spoke about, and yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I guess just to close off there, obviously, Michael, thanks so much for coming on the call and sharing your experience. I think you're a real inspiration to players and to parents who are looking to potentially get their child to go down this pathway. Yeah, congratulations on everything that you've achieved so far, and I'm sure you've got a lot more fantastic achievements to come. So once again, mate, really appreciate your time and look forward to catching up with you shortly.
No worries. No, it's great being here. I got to thank you as well for everything Voyager's done for me, and it was a lot of fun talking about myself and sharing, I guess, a bit of advice to all the players out there. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, mate.